This story was submitted by an anonymous viewer. This story begins when I was looking for an apartment to live in. I found one about 4 miles away, and it was exactly the way I hoped it would be, with rent that was affordable, so I moved in. Since it was only 4 miles away from my original home, I could continue to work where I did at the time, so there was no problem there, until I got into trouble for doing something stupid. I lost my job and ended up not being able to afford rent all by myself. That being that, I decided to try to find myself a roommate to split up the cost of living in an apartment so I wouldn't have to do it all on my own, but could still continue to live there. I saw a post on Facebook of an old friend of mine that lived in the area needing a place to stay for a while, so I figured 1 + 1 = 2, right? I invited the guy, that I hadn't talked to or seen in years, mind you, over, and I told him about the whole ordeal and what I was going through. He told me he would check out the apartment when we hung out and he would see if he liked the place. 2 days later, at the exact time he was supposed to meet me there, he knocked on the door. I opened it, and he let himself in. He didn't look so good, but I shrugged it off as looks don't mean anything most of the time. I showed him around, and he excitedly followed me into every room. Before he left, he told me that he would look into his finances to see if he could make it work. I was excited about this, seeing as I would get to live with an old friend, and I wouldn't have to pay rent all by myself. Relieved at the thought of possibly having financial stability, I drifted into slumber. That was, up until I was abruptly woken up at 2 a.m. by the sound of a knock on the door. I walked up to the door and looked through the peephole. It was him. Why was he here? I had no time to think as he looked back through the peephole, and I ducked to sit in front of the door. I heard the trembling of his fingers on the door, and I got shivers down my spine. I didn't dare say anything, so I silently snuck back into bed. I was awoken by the song of silence, and a thin ray of sunshine washing over me through my blinds. All was well. All was peaceful, so I prepared breakfast and got ready for work. I worked all day and got home at around 7 p.m. I got myself some red curry with yogurt and was setting it up next to me on the couch so I could lay back, eat, and watch some TV. I grabbed my phone and sent this guy a message to ask him why he was there last night. I could see that he was online, and he most definitely read my message, but I received no reply. My annoyance was interrupted by the same knock that woke me up the day before. I walked to the door, opened it, and there he was, sweat dripping from his forehead. "What the hell are you doing here?" I asked. He replied,
"I ran all the way here so I could tell you that I missed you, and I want to live with you."
I cringed and told him that was something for another time, and closed the door. He knocked on my door again, and he started yelling some bullshit as well. He started yelling really loud, and I kinda stopped listening until he exclaimed,
"I have a gun, and I will use it."
In reply to his statement, I froze, after which he started banging on the door even louder. He busted my door down eventually and got in. He then told me he had a crush on me and he had loved me since we were 11, but I had always turned him down, so now it would be my time to pay. He put his gun to my head, and I was completely frozen with fear. I still couldn't move, yell, or even let out a single tear. I could barely even breathe. He was shivering, unlike me remaining motionless. He was nervous. He didn't plan this. To my surprise, he took the gun off of my head and just walked out. Before leaving through my door, he simply said, "I'm sorry," after which he left. I started to shiver, tremble, and cry like crazy after it sunk in what just happened. I called the police, and when they arrived I gave them my statement, told them what had happened, and everything I knew about the guy. It's been 3 years now, and I still haven't heard back from either the police or the guy. This story was submitted by an anonymous viewer. This incident took place during the spring of my 7th grade year of school, a long time ago. I lived less than 2 miles away from the junior high school, and there were no buses to take me to or from school because I lived close enough to walk. The day of this incident, it had been raining non-stop, and I hated to walk to and from school in the rain. When school let out, I was walking home and a car pulled up next to me. There was a large lady in the driver's seat and a slender man in the passenger's seat, both of whom looked to be in their 40s. They pulled up in an old beat-up green station wagon, and the man rolled down his window and asked me if I wanted a ride to wherever I was going because the rain was pouring down really hard. Not thinking much of it, I gladly accepted. As I got near the back seat to open the door, I noticed that there was duct tape, rope, and something sharp with what looked like bloodstains on it. I suddenly got a sick feeling when I saw those items. Both the lady and the man noticed my facial expression, and the man stated to me that it was nothing to worry about. He had this crazy smile on his face which made me even sicker, and I started to back away from the car. The guy got out of the car and started to walk towards me, prompting me to turn around and run. I was running down the street with this guy chasing me, yelling at me that he wouldn't hurt me, when I saw a 7-Eleven a little bit further down the street. I started to run like my life depended on it. The guy was catching up to me, but before he could catch me, I ran into the 7-Eleven parking lot and straight to the door. The man stopped chasing me as soon as he saw me run into the store. I told the clerk what happened, and he called the police and told me to hide behind the checkout counter. I don't know where the guy went, but the police came and took me to where I first encountered the man and the woman, and then they took their report. After that incident, my mom took me to and from school, and we never found out if they were caught. I really hope they were. This story was submitted by an anonymous viewer. I'm currently 25 years old, and I'm a female. At the time of this story, I was 21, and I lived with my St. Bernard Bailey. Anyone who has seen the Beethoven movies knows just how big they get. I'd had Bailey for about 2 years by that time, giving him ample time to become attached and protective of me. It was the middle of winter, I was home alone, and I had to go outside to feed Bailey. My garage has 2 doors, a large one at the front and a smaller one at the back that locks from the inside. Because of that lock on the smaller door, I have to open the door with the remote, go through the front yard and through the garage to get to the back door where I can access the backyard to get to his food bowl. I had just finished feeding him when the motion sensor light turned off. I was used to it turning off sometimes, but as I was putting the scoop back into the barrel, the light came back on again. This wouldn't seem too weird, except that the sensor faces away from me. I look up and there's a man standing there, just staring at me and smiling. I was going to ask him something along the lines of, "Are you okay?" But he said something first, and what he said scared me a lot.
You're a very pretty girl. How about you come home with me? I have a lot of things you'd like.
This guy was 5 feet away from me, and I didn't have any weapons, so in one movement I flipped the latch of the door and hurled it open. Bailey was still eating, but he must have known something was wrong, because the moment he looked up, he bolted through the door towards this guy, tackling him to the ground. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want Bailey to severely injure this guy, so while he was on the ground, I shut the back door, grabbed Bailey by his collar and ran inside, closing the front door by remote. I didn't look outside. I just ran straight to my room and grabbed my phone and dialed 000. When the police arrived, the front garage door was open again, and the guy was nowhere to be seen. There is a button inside of the garage to open the door, and I suspect that he got out using that. Unfortunately, he wasn't found that night, and I don't know if he ever got arrested. If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. If you would like a chance to have your story featured in an upcoming video, make sure you check the description for information on how to submit your stories. I really wanted to thank you all for your support, Every time you leave a like on the video and share it with your friends, it really helps the channel out. And I really wouldn't be anywhere without all of you. I hope you all have an awesome day, and I'll catch you in the next video. And just remember, it's always scarier if it's true.